New details emerging from the Department of Children and Families in the wake of the tragic death of young 5-year-old Phoebe Johnchuk. DCF Secretary Mike Carroll says this loss is one he won't forget anytime soon.
So I was sick to my stomach, and I'm angry and I'm frustrated that we can't better protect kids.
Now, Phoebe died moments after her own father, John Johnchuk, threw her over a bridge where she plunged to her death right after a police officer had pulled him over for speeding. Now, the officer saw the whole thing play out right in front of him, even tried to save the girl's life, called emergency responders, but it was too late. In fact, Johnchuk had already been in trouble with DCF several times in the past, accused of abusing children, and critics say DCF is partly to blame for this tragedy taking place. But this is hardly the first story of its kind. As sad as it is, in fact, a recent investigation by the Miami Herald found 533 similar child deaths in the last 6 years alone, all of them due to abuse or neglect. And all of those cases also had previous contact with the Department of Children and Families. Now, Carroll promises sweeping changes in DCF, starting out with a new panel of child welfare experts coming together with law enforcement to make recommendations and install new protocols. Even still, Carroll says he's not sure that those new plans would have saved little Phoebe's life.
I don't know whether we would have even located him there, but I know this. I would rather have that protocol in place than not.
Now, Carroll says in tragic cases like this one, the DCF should have done more. But what those new changes could look like, we're still not exactly sure yet. What we do know, the panel of rulemakers will keep the horrific story of little Phoebe Johnchuk on their minds as they plan this new safety strategy.
I cannot imagine the fear that little girl experienced in the last moments of her life. That should not happen to any kid.
Now, he says the buck stops with him and with the department. And even if the judges in this case don't find DCF negligible, Carroll says he will hold the agency to a higher standard and hold them responsible for any of these terrible acts. The question remains, does the Florida public trust him to do that given the last 6 years under his care? And moving on, Donald Trump. You've heard of him, I'm sure, back in the news again today. He just recently launched a massive $100 million lawsuit against Palm Beach County, accusing them of singling him out as part of a grudge match and flying noisy passenger jets over his ritzy club in Palm Beach. The very next day, Trump was out on the golf course after filing this lawsuit, surrounded by models in high heels swinging golf clubs as he unveiled the multi-million-dollar renovations at the Doral Red Tiger golf course. Trump says the Trump National Doral is now the hottest resort anywhere in the whole country. A little sales pitch, I guess, but he's not just focused on the golf course. Trump may also have his eye on the White House, a separate direction. Often rumored as a Republican candidate for president, Trump took some time to tell a Channel 4 reporter how he would handle the recent terror attacks in Paris.
But it's a crazy world. There's never been a world like this. I mean, you used to have an enemy and they'd be in uniforms and you'd have your wars back and forth. These people are not in uniforms, so it's a much different. We have to be smarter than ever before and tougher.
So a little sneak peek there into the foreign policy of Donald Trump. Moving on now to the classroom. Kids, you're going to want to look away for this one. You're not going to want to hear this. School tests are about to get much harder and much longer for that matter. It's true. Thanks to the nationwide Common Core initiatives, the new standardized testing will take place mostly online. Better start studying up now. The tests start in just a few months from right now in early March. 3rd through 11th graders will start testing things like math and language arts. Now, 3rd and 4th grade students will stick to the traditional pencil and paper method, the ones that all of you parents took back in the day, while the older students will start taking their tests online. And because they're on a computer, students will see fewer multiple choice questions and more interactive questions. Speaking of those questions, still a lot of them unanswered on the state level. For starters, we still don't even know what a passing or failing grade will look like on the student level. And on the state level, proficiency standards won't even be official until next fall, when schools start to determine whether or not students need to repeat a grade again. Now, if an entire school misses the mark 2 years in a row, that school will have to make some big changes or shut down entirely. At least for this year, students will still take the same FCAT test for science and social studies. The state still hasn't formed education standards for those categories. And a word of the wise, a job well done doesn't necessarily mean you should give your coworker a good game, a so-called slap on the behind, especially when you work in the public office. Boynton Beach Community Redevelopment Agency Executive Director Vivian Brooks claims an elected official touched her inappropriately. She says Commissioner David Merker, quote, grabbed her butt during a meeting late last year. It was 2 days before Christmas when this meeting took place. Now, Boynton Beach Mayor Jerry Taylor is asking Merker to resign. But Merker is adamant he says he didn't do it. It's a he said, she said dispute. We've seen this before. Now, this incident allegedly happened in this private meeting, and there weren't any witnesses. Merker clearly denied those claims, saying, quote, emphatically, undoubtedly, and definitely, this did not happen. I am not guilty. I did not touch her. Those are his words. In fact, Merker says the mayor is targeting him because he just recently announced that he wants to run for mayor. 80-year-old Taylor is in his 5th term in office. Now, Merker is refusing to sign any agreement or admit to anything, but he has agreed to cooperate with an investigation. Although without any video footage, it's hard to imagine investigators will find any kind of substantial evidence one way or the other. And for those of you that forget your keys, well, now there's an app for that. But not everyone's eager to download the new feature to their smartphone. Many people still feel that it could raise security concerns. Here's the deal. If you scan pictures of your house key using this app, the company can measure all the tiny teeth and ridges, and they can make a new key and mail it directly to your front door. It's true. It's happening now, and several local law enforcement agencies say this app could actually open doors for criminals to try and get into your home. But app developers say that's just not the case. They will, of course, want to sell their app, and in fact, they claim this is even more safe than if you were to lose your keys in public because you have to register with an Apple login, a mailing address, and a valid credit card. The company called KeyMe plans to set up several key kiosks throughout Florida over the next 6 months.